In the glass-walled conference room of Elysian Towers, the city's tallest skyscraper, sat a young billionaire named Demilade Obasa. With a wristwatch worth more than a civil servant's annual salary and a reputation built on tech startups and strategic takeovers, Demilade was a man people whispered about, in awe, envy, or dread. To him, life was a boardroom and everyone else, just pawns. At 35, Demilade had everything: money, influence, and access to the highest circles of politics and power. But despite all this, he was plagued by a growing dissatisfaction. No matter how much he acquired, he wanted more recognition, more dominance, more control. Poor people are poor because they choose to be, he often said, sipping imported coffee in his marble kitchen. You either win or you're weak. There's no in-between. His staff feared him. His peers tolerated him. And his family, well, they had long learned to keep their distance. Even his mother, Mama Teo, who had raised him on the teachings of humility and kindness in the dusty streets of Acure, barely recognized the man he had become. I raised a king, she often whispered in prayer. But kings forget themselves when their crown is too heavy. Everything began to unravel one weekend. Demilade had purchased a large plot in the quiet village of Oberwall, intending to build an exclusive eco-resort. He arrived in his convoy of black SUVs, sunglasses on, flanked by assistants, bodyguards, and land surveyors. The villagers gathered at a distance, curious but cautious. The land he bought had once belonged to a kind elder named Barbara Iretti, who had sold it under pressure to cover his son's medical bills. Demilade never cared to meet the man, he had people who handled the peasants. As he walked the land with his designers, a small boy approached him with bare feet and a notepad. "Good afternoon, sir," the boy said politely. "I'm writing an essay on role models. Can I ask you what success means to you?" Demilade smirked. "Success is winning. It's being richer, stronger, smarter than everyone else." The boy wrote something down and thanked him. Then he said quietly, "My grandfather said success is when people remember you with kindness after you leave. Not when they fear you while you're here." Demilade chuckled. "Your grandfather clearly never built a tech empire." The boy smiled faintly. "He built homes for flood victims with his pension. People still thank him 10 years later." Before Demilade could respond, the village chief arrived. He was an old man, frail but proud. "Young man," the chief said, "this land you have bought carries more than soil. It carries memory. It holds the stories of those who came before you. Your buildings may rise high, but if you forget the people beneath them, you build nothing." Demilade dismissed the chief with a nod and returned to his plans. But something about that encounter unsettled him. That night, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Heavy winds uprooted trees, and water flowed down the hills into the village. Demilade's crew scrambled as their tents were destroyed. His SUVs were stuck in the muddy roads. For the first time in years, Demilade was stranded, no Wi-Fi, no control. He was forced to take shelter in a nearby hut, ironically, the home of Barbara Iretti. Barbara Iretti, now weak and nearly blind, recognized the visitor only by his voice. "So you're the city man who bought my land," he said with a chuckle. Demilade, soaked and frustrated, responded sharply. "Yes. I'm also the one who'll put this place on the global map." Barbara Iretti nodded slowly. "Maps are drawn by men, but remembered by history. The ground you stand on has seen kings and paupers. All it asks is respect." Demilade scoffed, but Barbara Iretti continued. "When I was your age, I too had land, cattle, and wealth. People respected me, feared me. Then a sickness came. My son fell ill. I had to sell everything to save him. He died anyway." Demilade looked away, uncomfortable. "Since then," the old man continued, "I've learned that power is temporary. But kindness is what outlives us." That night, Demilade couldn't sleep. The hut was silent except for the rhythm of the rain and the crackle of firewood. He looked around at the simple clay walls, the worn books on the shelf, the family photos of smiling faces. For a moment, he envied it. In Lagos, he had penthouses, bodyguards, stocks, and 5 phones. But not one sincere laugh in months. No real friendships. No peace. He stared into the fire and whispered, "Is this what I've become?" When morning came, the storm had cleared, but the roads remained unusable. Demolade had no choice but to help clean the village with the other men. At first, he moved clumsily, unfamiliar with manual work. The villagers eyed him cautiously. Then something happened. He saw an elderly woman struggling to lift debris and instinctively rushed to help. She thanked him, not knowing who he was. A child gave him water. Another handed him a mat to sit. No one asked for selfies, no one bowed. They just saw a man. By evening, Demolade sat beside Barbara Iretti again. "Do they always live like this?" he asked. "With dignity?" "Yes," the old man replied. "With simplicity and joy too. I never realized. I thought wealth meant freedom." Barbara Iretti smiled. "It can. But without humility, it becomes a prison built with gold bars." When his vehicles were finally freed, Demolade didn't rush back to the city. Instead, he spent 2 more days in the village. He helped repair a collapsed classroom. He donated silently to rebuild homes. He ate amala with the elders, laughed with the children, and slept under mosquito nets with no complaints. By the time he returned to Lagos, something in him had shifted. He called his mother that night. "I've been arrogant, Mama," he said. She didn't ask why. She only said, "Welcome back, my son." In the months that followed, Demolade changed. He revised the Oberwald project to include community spaces, a public library, a health center, and scholarships for village youth. He stopped flaunting his wealth on social media. He reduced his security detail, started showing up to staff birthdays, and even allowed his junior developers to call him by name. One of his senior managers asked one day, "Sir, are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," he replied. "I'm finally human again." The media was confused by the transformation. "Is this a PR stunt?" asked a journalist. "Rebranding for political ambition?" Demolade laughed. "No. It's just that I met a man who reminded me that riches without humility is poverty in disguise." The journalist raised a brow. "And who was this man?" Demolade paused. "An old villager. A stranger. But maybe, in the end, my truest teacher." Epilogue. Years later, Demolade built a foundation called the Obasa Legacy Trust. Its motto? Success is measured in hearts touched, not assets owned. At the center of the foundation's courtyard stood a statue, not of Demolade, but of Barbara Iretti, holding a cane and a book. On the base, it read, "To the man who taught a billionaire the value of humility."